UFC 299 this weekend from Miami, Florida. In the main event for the Bantamweight Championship of the World, Sugar Sean O'Malley takes on Marlon Chito Vera in the rematch of their original fight all the way back in the UFC Apex back in 2020 at UFC 252. In the co-main event, it is a huge step up in competition for one Benoit Saint-Denis. He's going to be taking on the former interim champion in Dustin the Diamond Poirier. This card is insane. Kevin Holland takes on the debuting Michael Venom Page, Gilbert Burns, Jack Della Maddalena. The main card opens with Petr Yan versus Song Yadong, and on the prelims, we've got Curtis Blaydes, Jaitan Almeida. You've got Mateus Gamrot versus Rafael dos Anjos, and Pedro Munhoz, Kyler Phillips, and then also Kalen Kuchegi and Macy Barber. But it is a stacked 14 fight card this Saturday from Miami, Florida. Last week we went 8-3 on the predictions, looking to do better this week with UFC 299. And folks, if you haven't yet though, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for some more UFC predictions here on the channel. Tomorrow we will have our PFL Europe predictions. This is the first PFL Europe of 2024 that's coming at you tomorrow on the channel around the middle of the day. So let's get it going. First fight of the night, Joanne Wood will be taking on Marina Moroz. This is going to be Joanne Wood's last fight. Last card, we just saw multiple fighters retire in Tyson Pedro and Jamie Pickett. Now Joanne Wood will make the final walk this Saturday night in front of a crowd with the first fight of the night. She's taking on Marina Moroz, who is coming off back-to-back losses, but still Moroz comes into this fight as around a -2-1 or -200 favorite, 2-1 favorite for the Ukrainian fighter. For Joanne Wood, she is coming off of a win in her last fight where she beat Luana Carolina by split decision. I thought she should have got the nod. I thought the decision was right. However, Luana Carolina is not the best fighter, and Joanne Wood barely got by in that fight. Now, Joanne Wood, up until the Carolina fight, has been fighting some of the best fighters in the weight class. Like, don't forget, after her win over, I believe it was Andrea Lee, after the Andrea Lee fight, she was supposed to get a title shot against Valentina. Shevchenko got injured, so instead Wood wanted to stay active and fight Jennifer Maia. She loses the fight to Maia. Maia gets the title shot instead. Then Wood comes back, beats Jessica Ai, then gets a fight against Lauren Murphy. Number one contenders fight. I thought she beat Lauren Murphy, didn't get the nod, and then of course lost back-to-back fights to Tyler Santos and Alexa Grasso. Now, no shame in losing both of those fights. Grasso's the world champion. Tyler Santos arguably should have beat Valentina, and Tyler Santos is going to make an impact, I think, in the PFL. I'm assuming she's going to be fighting the season for them. I mean, hell, PFL, Liz Carmouche is in the season this year, Dakota DeChiva. It's going to be a stacked 125 division for them. We'll see who else enters the fold for PFL at 125 pounds this year. But again, Wood is coming off that win. She's taking on Marina Moroz, who is 11-5 and coming off back-to-back losses as well. However, tough opponents. Jennifer Maia, we just talked about her. Karine Silva lost the fight by guillotine choke in the first round over in Boston at UFC 292. Moroz's last win comes in the form of a Maria Agapova win in 2022 on the undercard for Covington and Masvidal. She's got a win over the former title challenger at 135 pounds in Mayra Bueno Silva back in 2020, and it's just been mixed results for Marina Moroz. My question for Joanne Wood in this fight is, how involved in the sport is she really still? Like, how much does she really truly care about the sport right now? It's her final fight. She's 38 years old, still training at Syndicate MMA, of course. I just don't know. She's 38 years old, taking on Marina Moroz, who is 32, still in her prime, who is obviously, you know, I guess every fighter's true goal in the sport to win a world championship if your name's not Kevin Holland. So, you know, Marina Moroz is still trying to become a top contender, top 10 fighter in the weight class. That's why I'm taking Marina Moroz to win the fight by unanimous decision. I just think she's at a better place in her career. I know Wood is coming off a win. Moroz is coming off back-to-back losses. Moroz is 6 years younger. She has looked better recently than Joanne Wood has. I know, again, a loss to Karine Silva is tough. Silva did drop her in that fight. Still, though, Moroz looked all right in the Jennifer Maia fight, looked good in the Marina Agapova fight, and those have really been her only 3 fights recently. I just think Joanne Wood is a shell of her former self. You saw the Tyler Santos fight where she gets dropped twice in the span of 4 minutes and then gets her back taken and choked out. Grasso takes her down, chokes her out. I think Moroz has multiple pathways to victory in this fight. It's going to be either through the takedowns or really just the stand-up game as well. Again, Wood is not the same fighter she used to be. She's been in a lot of fights. She's taken a lot of damage over her career. I think Moroz will win this fight to cap off the career of Joanne Wood. Solid career for Wood, don't get me wrong, but I think Marina Moroz is going to pick up the victory here, and she's going to go on and win this fight by unanimous decision. Let's go on to our next one here. Interesting fight here in the flyweight division. We've got CJ Vergara taking on Almabaev in this fight. I always butcher Asu's name, but he's coming off a win in his last fight over the Picasso of MMA in Ode Osborne, and now he is back taking on CJ Vergara. Now, Osborne is a common opponent for both these guys. Ode did go out and beat CJ Vergara in New York at UFC 268, and for Asu, of course, coming off the win over in Nashville over Osborne in the second round by submission. And, you know, as the odds indicate, I believe Asu is the biggest favorite on this card. I mean, he is supposed to win this fight. He's a Kazakhstani fighter, 30 years old, taking on CJ Vergara, who, you know, he's won fights in the UFC, but he's lost them as well. His two losses are to Tatsuro Taira and Ode Osborne. His wins are Clinton Rodriguez, Daniel Lacerda, and Benicio Salvador. Now everyone beats Daniel Lacerda, so that's that. But again, the wins aren't horrible for Vergara. The losses aren't that bad either. I just think he's going to have trouble in this fight dealing with the ground game of Almabaev in this fight. You saw what Almabaev was able to do to Ode Osborne. He was able to get him down and hold him down, able to take him down twice in the span of those 2 rounds the fight did last. He had a lot of control time in that first round. It did not let Ode get going in that fight. And again, MMA math does not work this way where, okay, you know, Asu beat Ode and Ode beat CJ Vergara. That means Asu has to win. But when you look at this fight, yeah, Asu is going to, I think, beat the brakes off of CJ Vergara. I don't think this fight's all that close. Again, Vergara, I think, struggles a little bit with guys like this. You saw him get taken down by Daniel Lacerda. Lacerda obviously knocked him down as well a couple times, but that was probably maybe Lacerda's best fight in the UFC. And Lacerda has had a lot of weird fights in the promotion. But you look at his loss to Tatsuro Taira. Taira saw a lot of success getting the fight down. And I'm not calling Asu Almabaev Tatsuro Taira, because I understand Tatsuro Taira is very good. And this is a guy who should be fighting ranked flyweights. He should not be fighting guys like Vergara, guys like I don't think he's fought Benicio Salvador, but guys like Edgar Chairez, right? He shouldn't be fighting those type of guys. And when you look at Vergara's fight against Ode Osborne, it's a close fight. It really is. Ode wasn't able to take him down. He went 1 for 7 on the takedown attempts. But again, Asu Almabaev is a better wrestler than Ode Osborne is, and I think he is going to show the ground game in this fight. I mean, again, there's a reason he's a heavy favorite. I think this line has even shifted since I made this graphic. I have minus 425. I think Almabaev is up to minus 440 at this point. Look at Tapology. 93% of voters on Tapology going with Asu to win the fight. 7% going with Texas's own in CJ Vergara. Again, Asu Almabaev should win the fight, and I don't think it's all that competitive. I think he's going to be able to get Vergara down. I think he's going to be able to submit him in the second round. I think the first round is going to be a takedown for Almabaev, and it's just going to be Vergara fighting up the submissions of the Kazakhstani fighter. And then from there, again, I think Almabaev is just going to have his way. I think, again, he's going to be able to find the takedown, and it shouldn't really trouble him all that much. This is a fight, again, that they're trying to get Almabaev another victory, and I feel like it is somewhat of a step down from Ode Osborne. I think Osborne presents, you know, I think he presented more of a challenge to Almabaev than what Vergara does, and I think it's a tough fight for Vergara as a whole. If he's going to have to win this fight, he's going to have to try to keep the fight on the feet, but yeah, this is going to be all Asu Almabaev picking up the victory by second round submission. Okay, it is the UFC debut of Robelas Despaigne in this fight. Despaigne is good. Like, he is a former Olympic Taekwondo player. He is 4-0 professionally, fighting in Titan FC and Fury. He has won every single fight by first round knockout. You look at his last 3 fights combined, his last 3 fights have lasted under 20 seconds for 3 fights. 12 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds. Now, I will warn you, I think Despaigne is a little bit overrated. I'm not gonna lie. I don't think he's going to have an Alex Pereira type run in the UFC. I don't think he is. He is a tremendous kickboxer. He has got heavy hands. He's 6'7". He has an 87-inch reach. I think he's going to make an impact. Now, actually, let me correct my statement about saying he's not gonna be Alex Pereira. If the UFC builds this guy right, okay, maybe he will. If they give him only strikers and guys who cannot wrestle, like they did with Alex Pereira, to the point where he can improve his wrestling game to when he is fighting guys who can wrestle, maybe he can have that sort of impact in the UFC. I don't think he's going to be a champion someday. I think you might, though, see him in the top 10 of the weight class. The UFC's top 15 at heavyweight's not very good. You saw Shamil Gaziev fight Jairzinho Rozenstruik. He was horrible. Now, that being said, Shamil Gaziev might be able to beat Despaigne in a fight. Let's just be honest, because of the wrestling. Now, if Despaigne can get him out of the first round, or he can just connect early, then Despaigne would win the fight. Again, that's all, you know, maybe we get that fight next if Despaigne's able to beat Josh Parisian. However, we don't know. I want to see Despaigne against a UFC fighter. This is a UFC fighter in Josh Parisian. Because, again, look at the guys Despaigne has beat so far. Miles Banks is 1-1 professionally. Stevie Payne is 0-1 professionally. Travis Gregory is 0-1. And the guy he fought in Titan FC is 0-1 as well. That's something. He has not fought a true mixed martial arts fighter yet. And I'm not saying Josh Parisian's the best fighter in the world. I'm not. But Josh Parisian is a he's a lower level UFC heavyweight. He kind of should be here. Now, the last time Josh Parisian fought a well-touted kickboxer, he fought Almabaev. Now, I know Almabaev, he was just in the UFC because he was an MMA Factory guy. He was a guy that fought, he was a guy that was training partners with Sidio Gan. He was in that same camp with Francis Ngannou at one point. That's why he was there. I understand that. And Parisian beats him, though. He does get dropped by Almabaev, but he's able to get that fight down. Josh Parisian's able to wrestle and take Baedo down and win the fight down there. That's the same exact thing he's going to have to do to Robles Despaigne in this fight. Despaigne in this fight. I'm going to butcher his name a million times. I just don't know if Parisian's able to do that against a guy who's 6'7" and absolutely massive. We are going to see how good Robles' wrestling is in this fight. We are going to find out. Because again, if Parisian strikes with him, it's game over. Parisian is going to get knocked out in the first round. If he's able to take him down, though, then maybe it does get tricky. Because we will see how good Robles is how good he is getting off his back. Because again, you can fight these 1-0 guys. You can fight these guys who have never fought an MMA fight before. You're taking on Josh Parisian. And I know Josh Parisian is part of that low-level heavyweight gauntlet we always talk about. All these low-level guys. Parker Porter. We've talked about this before. I mean, the OG heavyweight gauntlet was Roque Martinez, Josh Parisian, Almabaev, Chase Sherman. Like those guys, right? Those were all the horrible heavyweights the UFC had at one point during the pandemic. Parisian's still in there. I hate to say, I think Arlovsky's kind of in that lower level. I think Arlovsky can really tune up a lot of these guys. But seriously, like these are the lower level guys. Waldo Cortez Acosta is probably one of the better guys that they have. That's kind of low level for now, right? Jamal Pogues is in that, I would say now, right? There's just bad fighters in the UFC heavyweight division. There just is. Now, if Robles wants to stay out of that, he has to win this fight, right? Actually, I'd say Jamal Pogues actually, I think he's progressed. Thomas Peterson's probably now in the low-level heavyweight division because Pogues is able to beat him. But again, Parisian's a real MMA fighter. Parisian is a guy who is actually capable of wrestling. You saw his Contender Series when he beats Chad Johnson. What does he do? He gets him down and he wins the fight by TKO down there. Now, again, Chad Johnson has not won a fight since he fought in the Contender Series. And Parisian has a win over Roque Martinez. Dontel May is another one of those lower level guys. But again, I have to think about the 2 times Parisian has won in the UFC. They've been by the takedown, really. And that's how he's been able to win those fights. He was able to get Roque Martinez down. He shot a lot of Roque Martinez, but he got Roque Martinez down, and he looked good down. Well, it didn't look great, but he was able to hold him down. Now, that all being said, I'm taking Robles to win the fight by first round knockout. I am going to hope, for the sake of the UFC's heavyweight division, he's able to keep the fight standing, and he's able to pull off this incredible knockout. Because let's be honest, that's what we all want to see. We want Parisian to get knocked out, right? It's best for business. It's what the fans want to see. It's what I want to see. I'm sure everyone watching the fight's going to want to see that. But the UFC has to carefully build Robles up from here. Then they have to go out and, give him an Andrei Arlovsky probably wrestle, but don't give him Muhammad Usman. Give him Jake Collier. There you go. Actually, Collier can kind of wrestle. He took down Chase Sherman. They just have to carefully put this guy against fighters and to get him to the top 15. I don't know. Marcelo Gomes in the PFL now, or I think Bellator, sorry. I don't know. They could just bring back Justin Willis and have him fight Justin Willis. No, they probably Arlovsky is the next guy for him, or Blagoy Ivanov, because Blagoy probably won't take him down. Blagoy will probably stand and trade with him, and I think, Robles could win that fight. But from here, again, I'm taking Robles to win the fight. I think he's able to beat Josh Parisian. I think, again, if he's able to keep the fight standing, I think he wins. And I think he will be able to do so. Again, he's got an 8-inch reach advantage. The guy's got heavy hands. But I would not be surprised in the slightest if Josh Parisian's able to take him down and hold him down. It's just oh well. And don't forget, Alex Pereira's first fight in the UFC, he got taken down in the first round and held down, and then eventually he came back and knocked the guy out in the second round, right? We will see how this fight goes. Robles should probably win, though. I'm going to take him by first round knockout. Our next fight is Felipe Lins and Ion Cutelaba. Already talked about this fight back in 2023. It's just been rescheduled. Nothing really changes with the picks. We're just going to roll that and then get into our next one with Michel Pereira and Michel Oleksiejczuk. This next fight between Felipe Lins and Ion Cutelaba, maybe shouldn't be on the main card. I think this spot should probably go to Montel Jackson and Chris Gutierrez instead. But here you have it, Felipe Lins taking on Ion Cutelaba in the light heavyweight division. For Lins, of course, the former PFL heavyweight champion. I remember when he came into the UFC, a lot of hype around the guy. Came in, fights Andrei Arlovski, and just gets beat up for 3 rounds. And not much really happened, but Arlovski just beat him to the punch all the time, and Arlovski won the fight. Now, Andrei Arlovski will continue his run of fighting prospects. He'll be taking on Waldo Cortez Acosta on that first card in January, which, of course, UFC has to gift us, of course, another UFC Apex card in January. It's 2024, and they're still running cards in front of no crowds. But Felipe Lins, he loses to Arlovski, gets knocked out by Tanner Boser, then comes back, beats Marcin Prachnio by decision, then fights OSP of St. Preux, knocks him out in the first round, and then most surprisingly beat Maxime Grishin. Didn't think that was going to happen. He beat Grishin by unanimous decision. Lins just kind of came out there and just put the wrestling boots on and just held Grishin down and really controlled him on the mat. And it was, honestly impressive. I was not expecting that from Lins. Now he gets Ion Cutelaba, he was coming off 3 straight losses. Fight against Ryan Spann, lost. He got finished in the first round again by Johnny Walker. Lost in the second round of the main event against Kennedy and Zejiku. They beats Tanner Boser, finishes Boser on the ground. That was on the Holloway Allen card as well, so a lot of guys coming off that Kansas City card. Booked against OSP a couple months ago. OSP withdrew. I believe he got suspended for steroids. I think that's what happened to OSP. Now he gets Lins. Can Felipe Lins take advantage of the losses that Cutelaba has had? Potentially. I mean, I think, again, Cutelaba is going to swing, obviously. That's probably what's going to happen. Cutelaba is not the worst wrestler in the world either, right? So will Lins result to that wrestling game that he has shown in both the Prachnio and Grishin fight? Maybe, right? But Cutelaba hasn't been the worst wrestler in his own right either. Cutelaba's not really a guy that gets taken down all that much, considering not many guys really want to try to take down Cutelaba because there's better ways to beat him, right? Well, okay. Well, Spann caught him on a guillotine coming in. Johnny Walker got him with a rear naked choke as well. So actually, scratch that. That's probably a stupid point. I was just making the case that you can also knock him out as well, because that's what Kennedy and Zejiku did to him, right? I think Lins is honestly better here. I know Lins is older. He's 38 years old, but Cutelaba has not been that great. I know he beat Tanner Boser, but beating Tanner Boser in 2023 is not the best, most significant thing in the world. Cutelaba's just lost a lot. He hasn't won all that much. He has 2 wins since 2020, and he's fought a lot. He lost to Ankalaev twice. Draw against Jacoby, beat Devin Clark, lost to Ryan Spann, lost to Johnny Walker, lost to Zejiku, beat Tanner Boser. I think this is a spot where Felipe Lins kind of takes advantage. Lins's chin hasn't looked bad since the Boser fight where he kind of just got cracked. I still think Lins honestly has the skills and has the tools that let him go on that 4-0 run in the PFL where he beat the Big Show, Jared Rochal, and then beat Josh Copeland to win the heavyweight tournament. I still think Lins kind of has it. I think as a whole, if Lins is able to mix it up with the wrestling, I think he's able to see some success there. I think Lins is able to drag Cutelaba into some deep waters in this fight, and I think his striking game as a whole wins him the fight. I think I'm going to take the underdog in this one. I'm going to take Felipe Lins. People are picking Cutelaba a lot. A lot of people like Cutelaba by knockout. I like Felipe Lins to win a boring, well, hopefully not, but not the most entertaining decision. I think that's how he gets it done. I think Lins is able to go out there. I think he's able to do just enough. I think he's able to pep him up on the feet. I think he's able to bring it down if he needs to. And all around, again, I think Felipe Lins puts together a nice performance and picks up the win by unanimous decision, which is saying something because I don't think I've ever picked Felipe Lins. Yeah, I haven't. The only time I've not picked Felipe Lins since he lost to Tanner Boser. That was in 2020. I'm taking him here. I'm taking Felipe Lins to win. He is 38 years old, which is a little bit concerning, but I'm still going to take him to win by unanimous decision. Okay, so our next fight, of course, in the middleweight division, we have got Michel Pereira taking on Michal Oleksiejczuk in this one. And don't look now, but Michel Pereira is actually on a 6-fight winning streak. Now, he could have the biggest breakthrough of his entire career if he actually made weight and fought Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Now, I thought he would have lost to Wonderboy, but still, he could have had that fight, and of course he couldn't make weight. But the guy's on a 6-fight winning streak, and he would be on an even bigger winning streak if he didn't knee Diego Sanchez in the head at the end of the 3rd round over in Rio Rancho in 2020. But again, the guy's on a 6-fight winning streak. Don't look now, but Pereira has been winning fights, and he's taken on Michal Oleksiejczuk, who, again, has been pretty good as a whole. He's 7-4 in the UFC. This is a guy who is coming off a win over Chidi Njokuani in his last fight over in Singapore. He went out there and finished Njokuani in the first round. Oleksiejczuk has got heavy hands. He can go out there and he can get the job done on the feet. Oleksiejczuk is pretty solid, but Michel Pereira is good in his own right as well. I mean, you look at Pereira's last fight, he was able to go out there and knock out Andre Petroski in the first round. Now, I thought that was going to happen. I thought it was going to take a little bit longer. I thought Pereira was going to have to kind of deal with the ground game of Petroski a little bit, but no, Petroski couldn't do anything because it was a minute fight and Pereira struck early and often and he was able to knock out Petroski in the first round. Now, the split decision victory over Santiago Ponzinibbio is very close. It is a close fight, but Pereira is able to barely win the fight. But again, 6-fight winning streak for Michel Pereira, and you're not going to see, I doubt, any grappling in this fight. You're going to see a striking affair, and the UFC loves putting Pereira on these pay-per-view cards. They used to do it a lot, but then they put him on back-to-back cards in Apex, which makes no sense because this guy, his fight style is supposed, this guy's got a fight style that lives for crowds because Pereira goes out there and he does the backflips. He's there to entertain, and this is what this fight is going to be. But take away all those antics that Pereira pulls. Like, take away whatever he did in that fight night I think it was in Vancouver. The one against Tristan Connolly, that was a horrible fight. And I always, till recently, really, I was always, against with Michel Pereira, I was like, man, the guy's good, but I can't forget that fight he had against Connolly, a guy who's not very good, and he just went out there and lost it because he decided to do a million backflips in the fight. He still does that. I mean, you've seen, I think it was the fight against Nico Price where he does the backflip, and he kind of just lands on Nico Price's head while Price is on the ground. But he still does that stuff. It's just that he's, I think, a better fighter at this point in his career. Pereira is still coming into his own. Like, the guy's 30 years old. He came into the UFC at 25. He's 30 now. He's really hitting his prime, and he is becoming better. Michel Pereira is a much improved version of himself. But Oleksiejczuk is really good as well. Oleksiejczuk's loss is to Kyle Borralho. I mean, Borralho is a tough, really matchup for anybody because of his ground game and because of his jiu-jitsu. The Dustin Jacoby loss is going to happen. Jacoby is pretty solid. That was at 205 pounds, though. Of course, we're down at 185 now for Oleksiejczuk. And I can't preference enough, that win over Chidi Njokuani is huge. It's a huge win because Njokuani can't strike as well. And I thought Njokuani, I think I picked Njokuani in that fight. I thought it was going to be a close fight, but Oleksiejczuk did enough to pick up the win. Yeah, I picked Njokuani to win. This one's going to be competitive as well. I just think Pereira has more skills in the feet. I think he has more tools. I think as a whole, he's got so many more weapons in this fight. Oleksiejczuk's a good boxer, don't get me wrong. He throws some kicks as well, but as a whole, I like what Pereira offers. Pereira is going to have Oleksiejczuk guessing throughout this entire fight. And I think that's what's going to propel Michel Pereira to victory. He's a minus 140 favorite, give or take. Yeah, minus 155 that I have. I think Pereira wins the fight. I think he's going to knock out Oleksiejczuk. I think he's going to. Oleksiejczuk is a tough guy to finish, don't get me wrong. The last time he was knocked out in the UFC, he hasn't been. Last time he's been knocked out as a professional was back in 2014. I think Pereira finally does it here. Yes, Oleksiejczuk's what's hurt him so far in the UFC has been his grappling game, and that's really what's damaged, his record, because he's been able to, he was submitted by Jimmy Crute, he's submitted by OSP with Yvonne Flew, he's submitted by Kyle Borralho. This is the fight where he's outmatched in the feet. I really think so. I thought that was going to be the Njokuani fight. I think this is it now with Pereira. Again, Michel Pereira has gotten better every single time I've seen him out there since that Tristan Connolly fight, or maybe since the Diego Sanchez fight, and I think he's able to win it. Give me Michel Pereira to pick up the victory. I think he'll get it done by second round knockout. And again, top 15 is calling for Michel Pereira. He missed an opportunity when he was going to fight Stephen Thompson. Now he's looking to get back to that point. He wins the fight by second round TKO. Let's go on to our next one here in the bantamweight division. We have got Pedro Munhoz taking on Kyler Phillips. Don't forget where Pedro Munhoz was, back in 2022. He had a somewhat competitive fight against Sean O'Malley. It's a fight that gets stopped due to an eye poke, and O'Malley looked really, kind of looked slow in that fight. Just nothing happened. And since then, Munhoz is booked against Chris Gutierrez. He wins the fight against Gutierrez over in Kansas City. And then he loses to Marlon Vera. And now Marlon Vera is getting a world championship shot. Now, riddle me this. If Pedro Munhoz beats Marlon Vera back at UFC 292 in Boston, is Pedro Munhoz fighting for a world championship tonight? He's not. Of course, the UFC picked Chito Vera to fight O'Malley because they want the rematch. Now, again, Moroz and Corey Sandhagen are so much more deserving of a title fight, but it is what it is. Munhoz is fighting Phillips now in this undercard, and this is the fight for Kyler Phillips. If he's going to break through, this is it. We've been waiting for Kyler Phillips really to break through for a while, and he has a win over Song Yadong. Back at UFC 259, he beat Song Yadong by unanimous decision. Now, it's a close fight, don't get me wrong. I think Kyler, it's razor thin. You give 1 and 2 to Kyler Phillips. I think, honestly, what might be the swing in the second round is the one takedown Kyler Phillips does get, because it is razor thin in the second round, but Phillips does get a takedown. The third round is a Song Yadong round, and if it's a 5-round fight, Song Yadong beats Kyler Phillips. But Phillips does win the first 2, and he wins the fight. Then right after that, he's on a fight night card on Sandhagen and TJ Dillashaw, and he loses to Raulian Paiva. It wins fight of the night. He knocks down Paiva in the fight, but he loses a majority decision to Raulian Paiva. That is rough. He's won back-to-back since, but that fight against Raulian Paiva has really stopped the momentum of Kyler Phillips as a whole. He's 5-1 in the UFC, and really, if he fought more often, this guy would probably be in the top 15 by now. I don't think he is yet. A win over Munhoz would be that fight that would get him into the top 15, but he's coming off a win over Raoni Barcelos. Well, Barcelos isn't completely washed. His last fight, he went out there and just beat Christian Quinones in Mexico. So Phillips is winning good fights. He was able to drop Raoni Barcelos, pretty much pitched a shutout for the most part. Barcelos fights him competitively in the third round, but 1 and 2 are all Kyler Phillips in that fight. And that's kind of what Kyler Phillips does do. Kyler Phillips is good early in fights, and he seems to kind of fade as the fight goes on. That's how he lost the Raulian Paiva fight. He dominates the first round. He gets a 10-8 on one card. The other cards, of course, he gets a 10-9, and that's why he loses the fight. That's why it's a majority decision. One judge had a draw, which was Sal D'Amato. The other 2 had a 10-9 in the first, and then they had Paiva winning the second too. Well, that's what Phillips does. He gets out to strong starts, and then he tends to fade. That might be a problem against Pedro Munhoz, because what does Pedro Munhoz do? Well, Munhoz, kind of starts a little bit slow and then turns it on as the fight goes on. Some fights, don't get me wrong, some fights are the other way around, but we will see how this goes. We will see, because when you look at the Munhoz-Vera fight, Munhoz started off all right, and again, it was just kind of Marlon Vera winning the fight as a whole. I gave every single round to Marlon Vera in that fight. It wasn't the greatest fight, but still, it is what it is. Phillips has to stay in the fight for 15 minutes here, though. If he's going to beat a veteran like Pedro Munhoz, who has been around, who has had 20 fights in the UFC, he is going to have to at least win the first 2 rounds. Because I expect Kyler Phillips, honestly, to win the first round. It's a matter of what does he do in the second. Pedro Munhoz, if he can win the second round, he's winning the fight. That's as simple as I will put it. If Pedro Munhoz wins the second round, he's going to beat Kyler Phillips. I just don't know what Phillips does past that first round. I think he wins it, and I think he will go out there and blitz Munhoz. Do I think he finishes Pedro Munhoz? I don't think so. I don't think Pedro Munhoz is a tough guy to finish. This guy's been in a million fights. He's never been finished in his professional career. This is his 29th fight. Plus 2 no contests. This is his 31st fight. He's been in a million fights. He has never been finished. I don't think Kyler Phillips is going to be the guy to do so. Phillips doesn't have the best track record, of winning fights by finish. The only fight he's won by finish in the UFC is the Marcelo Rojo fight back at UFC 271 in Houston. He got him with the triangle armbar. Phillips doesn't really hit with the most power. Phillips can outpoint you. He can stun you. He can set you down. He's not likely going to get the finish on the feet. I think Kyler Phillips, though, will still beat Pedro Munhoz. He is 10 years younger than Pedro Munhoz. Munhoz is 37. That is an older age for a 135-pounder. Kyler Phillips, again, 28. He is still coming into his prime. This is the breakthrough fight for Kyler Phillips. This is what it is. He has to win the first 2 rounds. It's as simple as that. He's got to win the first 2. I expect him to drop the third round. I think Munhoz is going to win the third round against Kyler Phillips. But it's just if Kyler Phillips can stay out of the power of Munhoz, because we know Munhoz can drop guys. How we saw it when he knocked down Gutierrez. He knocked down Dominic Cruz early in that fight. Dominic Cruz got a lot better as the fight went on. So, again, sometimes Munhoz has fights where he gets better as the fight goes on, but a lot of fights as well, Munhoz is good in the first round. It's a matter of we're going to see who's better in the first round. I just think Munhoz is going to improve in this fight as it goes on because of Kyler Phillips' resume record of losing fights as fights go on, and just because Munhoz has been there and done that, and he's been in a million fights, I think Munhoz will be better as the fight progresses. But we'll see. We will see. Munhoz has been in 5-round fights before, the Frankie Edgar fight, right? I think Munhoz can win the fight late in the fight. It's just a matter of what does Phillips do early. I think Phillips will win the fight by winning the first 2 rounds. Am I confident? Hell no. I think Munhoz is at pretty decent odds for plus 190. I just think I'm taking the younger fighter in Phillips. I'm taking the fighter who is way more dynamic in there at this point. I think Phillips can take it by decision. Let's go on to our next one here. Mateusz Gamrot taking on Rafael dos Anjos. Interesting matchmaking. That's how I'll put it. Because Mateusz Gamrot, I thought, should have been fighting Charles Oliveira at this point. And I know, okay, yes, Gamrot, has he gotten really lucky in his UFC run? Yeah, he has. A lot of people thought he didn't beat Sarukian. I thought he might have. That's not what I'm going to really put into the luck of Mateusz Gamrot. But, you know, the Jalen Turner fight, he didn't win the fight against Turner. And then the Fiziev fight, okay, Fiziev just breaks his leg, right? Like, yeah, Gamrot has gotten a little lucky. However, you're looking at wins, okay, yeah, he kind of deserves a bigger fight than Rafael dos Anjos. And I hate to say that that's where Rafael dos Anjos is, but RDA is coming off a loss to Vicente Luque in a 5-round main event. He loses it by decision at 170 pounds. He's coming down to 155. The first fight he's had at 155 since 2022, where who did he lose to? Oh, Fiziev. Yeah, Gamrot just beat Fiziev. And I know, again, he didn't beat him, but on the record, he has a win over Rafael Fiziev. So he probably should be fighting higher up the ranks than Rafael dos Anjos. Now, that's why Gamrot is a huge favorite. Oh, I didn't switch the graphic. That's why Gamrot's a huge favorite. That's why he's at minus 380, right? It makes sense. That's why he's at that big of odds in this fight. And on Tapology, 94% are going with Gamrot and 6% are going with RDA. Because, again, RDA is cutting down to 55 at 39 years old now. He's only getting older, and he's still, he's dropping down in weight. I mean, don't get me wrong, this is the same weight class where RDA was the world champion in at one point. Again, this guy was booked to fight Conor McGregor at one point. He lost to Eddie Alvarez. He lost to Tony Ferguson. The career has just kind of been, it's been different, but he's been fighting at 170 a lot. Now he's back at 155. Again, RDA has jumped from weight class, right? He had the fight against Kevin Lee where he wins the main event at 170. Then he drops one to Leon Edwards. He beats Felder. He beats Moicano at catchweight 160 when that was supposed to be his return to 55, lose to Fiziev in his return to 55, and then beats Barber at 170, and then lose to Luque at 170, and now we're back at 155 pounds. I don't understand it. Because, again, he's 39, and I know Gamrot hasn't had the best wins. But Mateusz Gamrot will definitely do enough to win this fight by decision, 100%. Gamrot's going to outstrike RDA in this fight. He's going to outstrike him. And RDA got taken down at will in the Luque fight. Can Gamrot do that? Potentially. That's what Gamrot has resulted to a lot as of late. I think the wrestling's going to be huge because RDA is good jiu-jitsu-wise. It's just a matter of, if RDA is on top, he's really good. From bottom, I wouldn't be too concerned with RDA throwing up triangles or whatnot or threatening Mateusz Gamrot off of his back. I think Gamrot is probably able to just lay on him for 15 minutes if he has to. Because, again, this is an RDA who's cutting all the way down to 155 pounds. At 39 years old, he's going to be drained. I just don't like the circumstances revolving around Rafael dos Anjos going into this fight. I just think it's incredibly difficult for him. I just think it is. And on the feet, I think Gamrot has a pretty good chance against RDA, right? I mean, dos Anjos, he's been a decent striker throughout his career, right? I mean, he went out there and just melted Moicano. But again, Moicano's a primary grappler. He did all right against Paul Felder, but he was mostly just grappling out of Rafael dos Anjos in that fight. I just don't think RDA is able to take down Gamrot. Say what you want about Mateusz Gamrot. Say it, call him lucky, whatever. He's a pretty good defensive wrestler, and I think he will have the wrestling advantage over Rafael dos Anjos in this fight. Again, a 39-year-old RDA who's dropping 15 pounds. Yeah, everything to me points to Rafael dos Anjos losing the fight, and Mateusz Gamrot getting the win. I'm taking Mateusz Gamrot to win the fight by unanimous decision. I think he should be fighting better fighters. And that's no disrespect. I don't mean any disrespect to Rafael dos Anjos. It's just that, again, Gamrot's beating Fiziev and then fighting a guy who Fiziev beat. I don't really understand it. Give me Mateusz Gamrot to win the fight by unanimous decision. Okay, our next fight's in the women's flyweight division. We have got Katlyn Chookagian. I'm gonna call her Chookagian. I think her name's Cerminara? I don't know how to say her name, I'll be honest. I'm going to call it Katlyn Chookagian. Katlyn Chookagian fighting Maycee Barber. Maycee Barber, coming off 5 straight wins, right? She had her back-to-back losses to Alexa Grasso and Roxanne Modafferi. She's won 5 fights since then. Now, did she really beat Miranda Maverick? No, she didn't. But still, Maycee Barber is actually on a run now. And Maycee Barber is a couple fights away from the World Championship. If she beats Chookagian, she's probably 1 away from the title fight, which is crazy. But honestly, Maycee Barber's still 25 years old. Maycee Barber just came to the sport at a very young age, and she lost to Roxanne Modafferi when she was talking about becoming the youngest world champion ever, sure. But when she lost the Modafferi fight, she was 21 years old. When she lost the Alexa Grasso fight, she was 22 years old, right? Since her 23rd birthday, Maycee Barber is undefeated. right? I think, again, we look at some of these fighters sometimes and we're like, all right, well, you know, she lost to Modafferi, and Modafferi's not very good, yeah. But Maycee Barber was still extremely young at that point. Katlyn Chookagian's 35. So Maycee Barber is 10 years younger than Chookagian going into this fight. And Chookagian is coming off a loss to Manon Fiorot, and I will give her credit. Nobody wanted to fight Manon Fiorot, and she went in there and she lost. And she lost the decision. She did miss weight in that fight, but she went out there and she fought, right? And she went out there and actually won a round against Fiorot. She won the third round against Fiorot, and I think that's, you know, it's a different stylistic matchup for Manon Fiorot when she takes on Erin Blanchfield over in New Jersey later this month. But if Katlyn Chookagian's able to give Manon Fiorot some problems, I think that Erin Blanchfield's going to see a lot of success going into that fight. But anyways, Chookagian, again, before the Fiorot fight, 4-fight winning streak. Cynthia Calvillo, Viviana Araujo, Jennifer Maia, Amanda Ribas. Chookagian, I thought, was always looked at as, you know, the gatekeeper. She was the gatekeeper to the championship. Now, I didn't think Chookagian was ever going to get a title shot. I think, obviously, that fight against Fiorot was the fight for her. If she's going to fight for a world title, she's going to have to beat Manon Fiorot. Now, I remember Katlyn Chookagian saying, I think it was it the Calvillo fight where she said this, or was it the Araujo fight? I think it was the Calvillo fight where she was talking about leaving the sport. Maybe it was the Araujo fight. She's still here. She's still fighting. Which, fair play to her. But she is getting older, and she's taking on a younger fighter in Maycee Barber, who is getting a lot better. Look at her win against Amanda Ribas. She looks good in that fight. Chookagian had to barely edge a decision victory out of Ribas, and Barber beat the brakes off her and finished her in the second round. Again, Maycee Barber is improving. She is getting better every single fight. The Andrea Lee fight, is it the most entertaining fight? No, but she wins it by split decision. She beats Jessica Ai, okay. She beats Montana De La Rosa. I cannot talk enough about the Ribas fight. She looks very good in the Amanda Ribas fight. She's able to finish her. After, again, Ribas looks to wrestle a lot, but Maycee Barber does a good job. And why does Ribas wrestle so much? It's because of the damage Barber is doing on the feet. Because Maycee Barber does hit very hard. And Maycee Barber is an all-around good striker. She is getting a lot better, and she hits hard for 125 pounds. Again, do I think she's going to have trouble with some of the top of the weight class? Yeah, I think she will have trouble with fighters like Blanchfield, like Alexa Grasso, like Valentina Shevchenko. Even Manon Fiorot, I think, will give her trouble as well. But outside of those four, this is a very troubling fight for Katlyn Chookagian because of the damage that Maycee Barber can do on the feet. Because Maycee Barber is not going to try to get into a point fight with her like Amanda Ribas did. No, Barber is going to look to bring it to Katlyn Chookagian, and she is going to be pushing forward in this fight. And I think that's something that's going to be somewhat troubling for Chookagian in this one. And again, I cannot preference enough. Maycee Barber's a younger fighter. She's 10 years younger than Katlyn Chookagian. I think she's going to have she's going to see a lot of strengths in this fight. So, go at Maycee Barber to win, -200 favorite in this one. It makes all the sense in the world. Tapology picks 84-16 for Barber over Chookagian. Again, way better striker. Barber should win the fight. On the ground, you know, I mean, Barber has gone there some in the past. Chookagian, you know, both these fighters are pretty much strikers. I think Barber should see the advantage. I'm going to go with Maycee Barber to win the fight by unanimous decision. All right, super pumped for this fight, man. Curtis Blaydes, Jailton Almeida. The fact this is the featured fight in the prelims is insane. This is an incredible fight where title implications are definitely on the line. I think the winner of this fight is actually going to fight for the interim belt because, again, you know, we're stuck with this Stipe Miocic, Jon Jones fight that, will it happen, will it not? I don't know. Again, I guess it's cool, but, like, the division has to move on at some point. I want to see Tom Aspinall, Jon Jones. That's the fight everyone wants to see. But, again, the UFC is stuck on Stipe Jon, which is fine. This is a fight, though, where they're going to make Tom Aspinall defend the interim championship. That's what they're going to do. The winner of this fight is going to fight for the interim belt, I think, right? You can't have Aspinall sit for forever, and they're going to make him defend the interim belt against the winner of this fight. Now, if Jailton Almeida wins, they're going to try to push Almeida to fight again in May because they want a main event in Brazil with the Brazilian fighter in the main event. Again, you can get that out of Alexandre Pantoja, but I think the UFC rather not main event the flyweights with probably Royval Pantoja 3 in a fight that, oh yeah, Pantoja's already won twice. But that's the main event if Almeida loses to Curtis Blaydes because they're not going to throw a British guy versus a US guy in Brazil for the heavyweight interim championship. They're not going to do that. They'd probably put Aspinall on that card in Manchester. It's supposed to be a fight night now, but they'd still probably put the interim heavyweight championship on that card as a main event. They'd probably do that. But if Almeida wins, then they have their pay-per-view main event for 301. Now, when you look at this fight, we are going to see how good Jailton Almeida is. Because, yeah, Jailton Almeida can go out there and he can destroy Jairzinho Rozenstruik. He can destroy Derek Lewis, even though he couldn't submit Derek Lewis in 5 rounds. But he can take down Derek Lewis at will and get Derek Lewis on the ground for 25 minutes. He can go out there and TKO Shamil Abdurakhimov on the ground. He can beat Anton Turklaji. He can beat all these guys, Parker Porter. That's great. But now you get the best wrestler other than John Jones in the weight class in Curtis Blaydes. This is the biggest step up in competition in terms of wrestling that you can possibly get for Jailton Almeida. Because you know the game of Jailton Almeida. He's an incredibly strong guy who goes in there and looks to just tie up with you and get you to the ground and look for a submission or just throw hammer fists and ground and pound on the ground. But will Curtis Blaydes allow him to do that? Because Curtis Blaydes is a guy who is very tough to take down. He is one of the better, I would say the best wrestler, again, other than Jones. The last time Curtis Blaydes has been taken down, he got taken down in the 5th round of a 5-round main event fight against Alexander Volkov, where he was just dead tired, and Volkov was able to get him down in the 5th round. But in that same fight, Curtis Blaydes took Volkov down 14 times. Other than that Volkov fight, Curtis Blaydes has been taken down one other time against Cody East back in 2016. Main event was John Lineker versus John Dodson. I believe it was in Portland, Oregon on Fox Sports 1. That's the only other time that Curtis Blaydes has been taken down in the UFC octagon. Other than that, nobody's been able to take this guy down. Jailton Almeida has to take Curtis Blaydes down to win this fight. Because on the feet, yeah, Curtis Blaydes is a better striker than Jailton Almeida, 100%. I'm taking Curtis Blaydes in a striking match against Almeida all day long. I think you're taking a lot of guys in a striking fight against Jailton Almeida a lot of the time. Almeida, yeah, great jiu-jitsu, great wrestling. Again, jiu-jitsu is where he's best at, but the striking game does leave a lot to be desired. He is just a strong guy that can get you on the ground and hold you down and look for transitions and look for opportunities to get submissions. He's very good, but he wasn't able to finish Derek Lewis in 25 minutes. Who's to say he's going to finish Curtis Blaydes in 15 minutes? Now, again, we have not seen much of Curtis Blaydes' defensive jiu-jitsu because we haven't needed to see it because, again, he's the one pushing the pace with the wrestling. He's always been the better wrestler in all of his fights, and now you get Jailton Almeida, who is that guy who, wrestling-wise, he might not match up skill for skill, but jiu-jitsu, that's how good Almeida is. And the strength and the power that this guy has. I mean, again, look at Jailton Almeida. Look at the picture of Almeida. This guy is so strong. He's just such a difficult out. He's such a tough guy to deal with. But again, Curtis Blaydes, if he can just stuff takedowns to that Jailton Almeida, he's going to win this fight. Because I don't think Almeida is going to be able to outstrike Curtis Blaydes. And in a striking fight, I think Blaydes might even be able to get a late finish against Almeida. This is the rare time where I don't think Curtis Blaydes will look to grapple at all. I don't think he's going to. Now, I can talk about Curtis Blaydes' last fight against Sergey Pavlovich, but I don't think it's all that relevant because, again, Pavlovich is the exact opposite of Jailton Almeida. He is a power puncher. He is a heavy-handed striker who is not looking to grapple at all. And in that fight, Curtis Blaydes was the one who should have grappled, and he really didn't look for it that much. And I picked Blaydes to win that fight. I thought he was going to be able to take down Sergey Pavlovich and kind of just, check him with his wrestling. Well, he didn't really look for it at all. So this is the exact opposite in this fight with Almeida because I don't think Blaydes should be looking to wrestle a bit. Because if he does, then you go into the guard of Jailton Almeida, which is given something that we haven't really seen because, again, Almeida hasn't been put on his back ever because who wants to go into a wrestling or a jiu-jitsu fight against Jailton Almeida because of what he possesses? So this is what makes this fight so interesting, and there's so many question marks around this fight as a whole, too, because, again, wrestling of Blaydes, jiu-jitsu of Almeida, what's going to prevail in this fight? It's very close for me. Because we haven't seen Curtis Blaydes on the ground before, defensive-wise, right? I mean, sure, Volkov took him down, but nothing, Volkov wasn't threatening him with anything. If Almeida gets you down, he's immediately going to look for submissions. He looked for a bunch of submissions against Lewis. I mean, it was only 4, but still, he was looking for an opportunity. This is something Jailton Almeida should do more, though. Almeida should look to at least throw some more punches in the ground. Because in opportunities and spots against Derek Lewis, he had Derek Lewis down and he just didn't punch at all. That's something he has to do in this fight against Curtis Blaydes. He's got to do at least some damage down there because, sure, okay, Almeida can win fights off of control. But just for the sake of his career and for the sake of winning fights, it's so beneficial for him to just throw strikes and just implement some ground and pound. Because if you throw strikes in the ground and you look for ground and pound, it's just going to open up so many more opportunities to take someone's back, to look for a choke, to, look for an arm or anything. It's just going to open up positions for him to get a submission. But for Almeida, He looked a lot for just positioning in his last fight because he was looking to set up that next submission he was trying to look for in that Lewis fight. He didn't look for too many submissions, but he should just punch more. And that's what he did against Abdurakhimov, because he just went out there and just, ground and pounded his way to a victory over Shamil Abdurakhimov back in January of 2023 at UFC 283. He has to do that more. He has to do that a lot more in this fight. We will see if he does. I really hope he looks to strike on the ground. I think he's going to beat Curtis Blaydes. I think he's just going to will Blaydes down to the ground. I think Jailton Almeida is going to win a decision. I think a very close decision. We have not seen Blaydes all that tested in terms of someone else trying to take him down. And Jailton Almeida will be that test. I'm trying to remember when he fought Justin Willis. Did Willis even look for takedowns? No, he didn't. Yeah, because Justin Willis just didn't try anything. Because Justin Willis was sort of a wrestler who that's what he did on his way to his fight against Curtis Blaydes when they fought in North Carolina in 2020. I think it was 2020, right? 2019, right? Yeah, they fought in, it was Nashville. But still, I think it was Nashville. I'm not sure. But Almeida is going to try it, and I think Almeida is going to be successful. I think Jailton Almeida will look to wrestle, and I think, again, it's not going to be pure skill. It's going to be based on strength and power. I think Almeida is able to just get Curtis Blaydes down. And I think if he does have a revamped, offense on the ground with his strikes, with ground and pound, I think he's able to beat Curtis Blaydes, and I think he's going to win the fight. Give me Jailton Almeida to beat Curtis Blaydes by unanimous decision. Let's go on to the main card. Petr Yan versus Song Yadong in the opener. Now, Petr Yan has lost 4 out of 5. The one win is Corey Sandhagen, but the losses, he probably should have beat Sean O'Malley. I'll give him that. I think he should have beat Sean. Merab's going to do that to a lot of guys. And the Aljo fight, I thought Aljo won a pretty clear 3-2 in that fight against Petr Yan at UFC 273. I thought, again, Aljo won 1-3 in that fight. Now Petr Yan gets Song Yadong, and Song Yadong has been constantly improving. I know he has the loss to Sandhagen, but the wins over Ricky Simón and Chris Gutierrez are good. He goes the full 5, or he goes to the 5th round against Ricky Simón where he gets the finish, and in that Gutierrez fight, he goes the full 5 and he wins the fight. Gutierrez does have his moments in the feet, don't get me wrong. Song Yadong has to win spots and has to win rounds, especially late. He had to win the 4th and the 5th with his wrestling. Now, again, I thought Song Yadong won the first 3. I thought some of those rounds were competitive, sure, but Yadong went to the wrestling a lot in the 4th and 5th rounds, and that's really all he did in those last 2 rounds, and that's what propelled him to victory in that fight. When you look at this Petr Yan fight, will he look to wrestle Yan? Maybe, because Moroz was able to take him down 11 times, given it was 11 on 49 attempts, so it's not like anyone can just take down Petr Yan. But Aljo did take Yan down twice and held him down for 2 straight rounds, and Yan, again, that was kind of... It was interesting, and I think Yan has, gone away from this, but in that first and that second Aljo fight, Aljo takes him down, and the way Yan dealt with the ground game of Aljo, which was really stupid, he went straight to his back. He went straight to his back against a guy that is nicknamed himself the Human Backpack for good reason, and I don't know why he did that. It was a weird strategy because he kind of just put himself in a corner in that fight because he wasn't able to get back up once Aljo had the body triangle, because Yan immediately tried to get back up by giving up his back. It was a stupid game plan, and I don't think he'd do it again if he fought Aljo again. Now, he's never going to fight Aljo again because Aljo fights at 145 pounds. But Song Yadong, I don't think is going to look to wrestle Petr Yan. I think he will look to strike with Yan. How... Is Petr Yan still the same Petr Yan that won the championship against Jose Aldo? I don't know. Is he the same Petr Yan that beat Corey Sandhagen? I don't know. He just looked so overwhelmed in the Merab Dvalishvili fight, and I understand that Merab is going to do that to a lot of fighters. I get that. But man, Petr Yan did not look good. And I know he's got power, I know he can strike, he looked good in the Sandhagen fight, but we have to base this off the last 3 fights, which, okay, sure, I thought he beat Sean O'Malley. I thought the wrestling did enough for him to win that fight. He did go 6 for 13 on attempts in that fight, but he was able to go out there and win the overall fight against Sean O'Malley. Sure, I thought he was going to win that fight. They gave the decision to O'Malley, and that changed the course of UFC history, because now O'Malley gets the title shot, and now O'Malley's the world champion, right? Okay. But the Merab fight was just so damaging. Now, it's going to be 363 days since the Merab Dvalishvili fight for when he gets the Song Yadong fight. But since that fight, Song Yadong has had 2 fights in the UFC, and he's won both of them. He's gone basically 55 minutes in the UFC octagon 45 minutes in the UFC octagon since Petr Yan lost a dominant 50-45 decision to Merab Dvalishvili. Oh man, I'm gonna go with Song Yadong. I'm taking Song Yadong to win the fight. I think he gets it by unanimous decision. I'm going to take the underdog in this one. I don't believe in this version of Petr Yan anymore. This is a guy who's lost 4 out of 5. He has not been the same guy since he kneed Aljo in the head. I know he beat Sandhagen, but still, I feel like a fight that he had against Moroz Dvalishvili is so damaging to one's career that it really impacts the course of and the trajectory of where he's going. So that's why I'm going to go with Song to win the fight. I think Song outstrikes Petr Yan. Again, I wouldn't be saying this a couple years ago. But Song Yadong's only 26 years old. He's only getting better. I know Yan's 31. He's in his prime. He's well into his prime. That's fair. But Song Yadong is only getting better as a mixed martial artist. He's only improving. And eventually he's going to start catching up to some of these top guys. And this is the point of his career where I think he's going to catch up to Petr Yan. I think Yan loses and he goes on a 4-fight losing streak. I think Song is just going to be too much. I think Song is going to at least threaten a little bit with wrestling. And I think that's going to make it very tough on Petr Yan to win this fight. I think he's going to, again, we say it all the time, your wrestling makes your striking better because Yan is always going to be concerned about the wrestling game of Song Yadong. I think Song will look for it early and just try to put it out there. And then, of course, he'll look to strike with Petr Yan. I think it's going to be close. I don't think there's going to be a knockdown on either side. But I think Song Yadong is going to do just enough to outstrike Petr Yan blow for blow. And I think Song Yadong is the all-around better fighter at this point in both these guys' career. Give me the 26-year-old fighter from China, Song Yadong, training at Team Alpha Male in Sacramento, California, is going to beat Petr Yan. He's going to do it by unanimous decision. Okay, our next one, Gilbert Burns versus Jack Della Maddalena in the welterweight division. A huge step up for JDM because, you go from fighting Kevin Holland, who is fighting in the next fight after this, to fighting a former title challenger in Gilbert Burns. Now, what Gilbert Burns is going to come out for this fight? Because a lot of this card is younger fighters who are making their way up the ranks, like Jailton Almeida, like Jack Della Maddalena. I wouldn't say Michael Venom Page is a young fighter. He's older than Kevin Holland, but a relatively unknown UFC fighter taking on a UFC veteran in Kevin Holland. Robles taking on Josh Parisian. They are guys who are coming into the promotion or making their way up the UFC ranks, taking on well-established veterans. Here it is again, Gilbert Burns, Jack Della Maddalena. Well, again, Maddalena is 10 years younger than Gilbert Burns. He's going from Kevin Holland to Burns. Gilbert Burns is 37 years old, coming off a loss to Bilal Muhammad where he looked horrible. It was a fight where the winner was supposed to fight for the world championship. However, Bilal is still waiting on that world championship fight. But Gilbert says he was hurt in that fight. He said he got hurt early in the fight. Sure, that's fair. He took it on very short notice. He took it less than a month after fighting Jorge Masvidal in Miami at UFC 287. That's fine. He loses the fight by decision. But now he gets Jack Della Maddalena, a very good striker, a guy that is going to test Gilbert Burns a lot. And a guy that I don't know if Burns can just take down. Because the last time we saw Burns the last 2 times we've seen Burns against really good strikers, Wonderboy Thompson and Jorge Masvidal. How did Burns win and how did Burns excel? It was with his wrestling and with the grappling. He was able to win that second round and basically shut down anything Jorge Masvidal had in that fight at UFC 287 with Burns' wrestling. And same with the Thompson fight. Wonderboy stung Burns a couple times at 264. But what did Burns do? Burns got the fight down and he held Thompson down in the first and the third. What did he lose? He lost the second round because Stephen Thompson hit him with that, I believe, was this spinning wheel kick or was it a head kick? He hit Burns with it, wobbled him, and again, Burns went back to the wrestling when he needed to. So, can Burns take down Maddalena? I don't think so. Jack Della Maddalena has got really good takedown defense. It's the only time he's been taking down the UFC, other than the Ramzan Ameev fight, was against Basil Hafez, where Hafez had some success. Now, I'm not too negative on that Hafez fight because short notice, new opponent switch. Basil was really unknown, and Della Maddalena took the fight, won it by split decision. It was a very close fight, and the Holland fight was close too. I thought the Basil Hafez fight was closer than the Kevin Holland fight. I thought that fight, again, the Holland fight, I really don't understand how it was a split decision. I picked Holland to actually win the fight, but I still thought Maddalena should have got the nod. But now you get Maddalena and Gilbert Burns, and I always talk about it every time Gilbert Burns fights. It's about his chin, but I think we're past the days where Burns was getting, because the guy was a 55-pounder coming up to 170, and, think we're past the days where he got dominated on the feet by Dan Hooker. We really are, right? He's at 170 now. He's been at 170 for a long time. Again, I think the questions of the chin really came in when he got dropped by a jab by Usman. But I think really since then we've seen, okay, Usman does have heavy hands, and really it's not much of a Burns chin issue. It's more of Usman, okay, this guy can, strike and strike hard. And as a whole with Burns, I wouldn't be too concerned with the chin. Of course, we saw the Chimaev fight. He was able to eat 108 punches from Khamzat Chimaev and still, again, go the full 15. But Belal Muhammad outstruck him for 25 minutes. And that's why I'm concerned with Gilbert Burns, because Jack Della Maddalena is a better striker than Belal Muhammad is. And I know, again, Burns was injured going into that fight, but still, this is a 37-year-old Gilbert Burns taking on Jack Della Maddalena, who's climbing the ranks and still improving. I find it a little bit difficult to pick Gilbert Burns here, I'm going to be honest, because I don't think he's going to be able to take Della Maddalena down. I mean, I know Burns, again, you saw what he's able to do. Neil Magny was able to get the arm triangle, submit him in the first round. Masvidal was able to take him down. That really changed the trajectory of the fight. Same with the Thompson fight. I think this is very different looking at the Della Maddalena fight. I think Jack Della is going to keep this fight standing. Again, even when you look at the Basil Hafez fight, Hafez did take him down 3 times, but he shot 20 times. I don't think Gilbert Burns is going to have that same input in terms of wrestling and grappling in this. I think it's going to be primarily a striking fight, and I think Jack Della Maddalena is actually going to finish Gilbert Burns in the second round. I think, again, Burns is getting up there in age, 37 years old. This is the 29th professional fight for him. If Belal Muhammad is able to touch him 132 times in the feet, Jack Della Maddalena is eventually going to knock him out. So give me Jack Della to win the fight by second round knockout. I'm taking the Aussie here. I think he keeps on climbing the ranks. I think this is a changing of the guard, at least of some sorts, in the 170-pound division with Jack Della Maddalena picking up the win. And we're going to continue the youth movement here. We picked Song Yadong. We picked Jaiten Almeida. We picked Macy Barber. We're taking Jack Della Maddalena to win the fight. Let's go on to our next one here in the welterweight division. We've got Kevin Holland taking on Michael Venom Page. And again, MVP is not young by any stretch of the imagination. This guy's 36 years old. But again, in terms of the new fighters entering the UFC, Michael Venom Page, of course, this is the UFC debut for him. If you are not familiar with MVP, well, former Bellator fighter. Now, I always thought MVP was a little overrated. I'll just be honest with you. I thought MVP was a little bit overrated. I've seen MVP fight in person, actually, and he did win the fight. He beat Gochi Yamuchi in 26 seconds. Yamuchi got hurt. That's whatever. It was a leg kick that finished the fight. MVP found the leg kick and put down Yamuchi. But I've always thought MVP is a little bit overrated. I didn't think he beat Douglas Lima in the rematch. I didn't think he beat him at Bellator 267. Of course, Storley beat him by split decision. I didn't think it was that close. Of course, he had the first loss to Lima, where Lima hits him with the leg kick. MVP falls down, and then boom, gets hit with the uppercut and knocked out. But Bellator they always were careful in booking MVP. They always booked him against the right guys, to the point where they got him into a spot where they booked him against guys who weren't very good, right? They got him into a rematch with Douglas Lima where he barely won. They put him in a championship fight against Storley. He loses. They put him against a primary jiu-jitsu guy in Gochi Yamuchi, who can't really strike that much. And MVP got to him striking-wise before Gochi Yamuchi could take him down. Now, MVP had a fight in bare knuckle. He lost to Mike Perry. I know Mike Perry is like the BKFC GOAT at this point. He wins all those fights at BKFC. But, a primary striker like Michael Venom Page should not be losing to Mike Perry. I know MVP, and again, this is a guy who is a high-level boxer. This high-level kickboxer, but he's 36. He's coming into the UFC at a very, I wouldn't say very old age, but he's coming in at an older age here. And Kevin Holland, do I think Kevin Holland can go blow for blow and knock out Michael Page? I don't think so. I think MVP still is a slightly better striker than Kevin Holland. However, all around mixed martial arts, I'm taking Holland in this fight. I don't know if Kevin Holland is going to do this crazy agreement with Michael Venom Page like he did with Stephen Thompson, where he's going to say, all right, I'm not going to wrestle, we're just going to strike. Because if Kevin Holland wrestled Stephen Thompson, I think he probably would have won the fight. I am urging Kevin Holland, don't do that same agreement with Michael Page here, because it's a fight that can really propel Kevin Holland in his career. Because the UFC is not talking about Michael Venom Page like he's, they're talking about him like he's Michael Chandler. Seriously. They are hyping him up into the UFC like he's Michael Chandler. You saw the UFC Apex card last night. They would, at every ad break, they'd talk about MVP like they did against Chandler or with Chandler. Michael Page is not on the same level as Michael Chandler. Michael Chandler was one of the greatest Bellator fighters ever. Michael Page beat a bunch of guys in Bellator who weren't very good and lost a championship fight against Logan Storley, who got dominated by Yaroslav Amosov when he eventually fought for the belt. MVP is about to turn 37. He is past his prime. Kevin Holland is still in his prime. Kevin Holland should not make that stupid agreement with MVP. MVP is not the nice guy that Stephen Thompson is. Don't make the agreement. Go out there and take him down. Go out there, take him down, and choke him out, because that's what Holland can do. Kevin Holland has a bag of tricks on the ground. He truly does. He's got a lot of different ways he can finish the fight on the ground. Holland has been able to get submissions. You look at the Tim Means fight. You look at the fight that he has against Michael Chiesa. He's able to submit Chiesa. I think if he can just get this fight down against MVP, he is going to win it pretty handedly. But again, it troubles me to pick submission Kevin Holland, because I don't even know if that's the way he's going to fight this fight. Because Kevin Holland, again, we talked about this in the open. Kevin Holland is the one fighter who does not care about championships. He's there to make money, and that's it. Well, I will urge Kevin Holland again. If you're trying to make money, go out there and beat MVP, and then only bigger fights are going to be lined up for you. I know you want to put on a show for the fans, but getting knocked out by MVP and MVP's debut at 37 years old for Michael Venom Page is not the best look for Kevin Holland. I think Holland can easily win this fight on the ground. On the feet, I think MVP has a very good chance, and I think it's a 50-50 on the feet. I don't think MVP is that much better than Holland, but I think, again, it would be a 50-50, and it's whoever lands the big shot first, because I think both these guys are very good on the feet, but ever so slightly, I think barely would give the edge to Michael Venom Page on the feet. But on the ground, in a true mixed martial arts fight, Kevin Holland has by far the advantage. And that's what Kevin Holland has to go to. And I'm going to hope that he goes to that. And I'm going to take Kevin Holland to win the fight by first round submission. I think whether it be if he stuns and wobbles MVP and gets the fight on the ground and then looks for a submission, or just takes MVP down and gets a submission, I think Holland can win. And yeah, MVP's never been submitted in his career. That's sure. Storley wasn't able to do so. And I know, again, Logan Storley, great wrestler, was a Big Ten wrestler, University of Minnesota. That's great and all. Storley is not a submission guy. Storley's more of a ground and pound guy when he gets to the ground. You saw his last fight where he beat Brennan Ward. He got him down. He just looked for, he looked for ground and pound. Storley is not going to be the type of guy that's going to look for submissions. I don't even think he attempted a submission against MVP. So don't think that MVP's got a great submission defense game. No, he just hasn't been tested all that much there. Kevin Holland, I think, should dominate if the fight hits the mat. But again, it's a big if. If Kevin Holland goes for the wrestling, if Kevin Holland looks to his jiu-jitsu, he will handedly win the fight. But that's a big if. If Holland does not go for the submission and does not try to take down MVP, I think it could be trouble. I'm still, though, going to take Kevin Holland to beat Michael Venom Page by first-round submission. Let's go on to the co-main event. Dustin the Diamond Poirier takes on Benoit Saint-Denis, 5 rounds, 155 pounds. Dustin Poirier is a pretty sizable underdog against Benoit Saint-Denis, who's 13-1 and 4-1, 5-1 in the UFC. And we can talk about Benoit's one loss. Short notice, 170 pounds against Eliseo Zaleski dos Santos. He takes an absolute damn beating. He gets bloodied and battered. It's disgusting. But since then, Benoit has been very good. He has finished every single fight since then. And I know, again, Benoit Saint-Denis has been showing the power, the head kick knockout of Matt Frivola in his last fight. However, I'm not entirely on the Benoit Saint-Denis hype train in this specific fight. Do we forget how good Dustin Poirier is? Do we really think Dustin Poirier is that much over the hill just because he got knocked out by Justin Gaethje? It's Justin Gaethje. Like, Gaethje's gonna fight Max Holloway. He'll probably win, and then Gaethje's gonna get the title shot. Justin Gaethje's one of the best fighters in the world. And we're really that down on Dustin Poirier to the point where he lost. He got head kicked by Gaethje that now we think he's gonna lose to Benoit Saint-Denis, who's 5-1 in the UFC. I don't see it. I really don't. I'm sorry if I give the pick away right now, but I think Poirier's going to break Benoit Saint-Denis. I really think he's going to. I think this is a Dan Hooker-esque performance out of Dustin Poirier. The pick is 4th round TKO finish for Dustin Poirier. I think eventually he's going to win the fight. But putting Dustin Poirier at plus 165 is absolutely ridiculous. That's the current line on Poirier. It might shift, sure. And I know Benoit Saint-Denis look good, but Benoit Saint-Denis coming off wins of Ismael Bonfim, Thiago Moises, Matt Frivola. Who has Dustin Poirier fought in the last 5 fights? Gaethje, Chandler, Oliveira, McGregor, Dan Hooker. I know McGregor twice, but Dan Hooker as well, right? Habib before that, Max Holloway, Eddie Alvarez. He only fights elite fighters. And if Benoit Saint-Denis wins, sure, he's an elite fighter. But I don't think he's there yet. I don't think he is. I truly don't think he is. I think Dustin's a better striker. On the ground, I don't think Benoit's going to go down there. I don't think the fight's going to end up on the mat unless there's a knockdown. Which, sure, maybe Poirier gets knocked down in this fight. And yeah, it's only been 6 months. No, it's been more than 6 months. It's been 8 months since he lost to Gaethje. So that's not an issue. The chin, I don't think is going to be an issue. I think people are looking at, okay, he got knocked out by Gaethje, he got knocked out stiff, then he's going to, Poirier's going to be a shell of his former self. I don't think so. I really don't. I think Poirier is still definitely in this game. I really think so. I don't think he's 1 foot in, 1 foot out of the MMA game. I truly don't think that's how Poirier is approaching things anymore. Like, I don't think that's what he's looking at right now. I think Poirier is still looking to become a world champion because if he beats Benoit Saint-Denis, he's a fight away from the belt. This fight reminds me of Gaethje Fiziev. Everyone thought Fiziev was going to be Gaethje. I was like, really? I picked Gaethje to win the fight. I thought Gaethje was going to get him, and he did. This feels like the same exact thing. We've had so many fights recently where the UFC is trying to push someone to the moon, push a rising contender to the moon against a well-known veteran, and they lose. Abus Magomedov, Sean Strickland, Joe Pyfer, Jack Hermanson, Justin Gaethje, Rafael Fiziev, Shamil Gaziev versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik. All those fights share a common thing. The veteran ended up winning. I think the same exact thing happens here. Dustin Poirier is going to find the finish of Benoit Saint-Denis. He's going to break Benoit Saint-Denis. Poirier still has a good chin. I believe it. He just got caught. He just got caught against Gaethje. That's all. Truly. Poirier can still strike. Poirier's still got heavy hands. He knocked down Oliveira. You saw him in that fight against Michael Chandler where he almost finishes Chandler. Chandler almost finished him too, but incredible fight. I just think it's too much too soon for Benoit Saint-Denis. I just think it is. I don't think Benoit Saint-Denis is going to just catch Dustin Poirier and knock him out. I don't think it's going to happen. I truly don't. I know Benoit Saint-Denis does have that one punch or that one kick, punch, whatever. He's got that one strike finishing ability, sure. I just don't think it's going to happen. I just truly think Poirier got caught. I think Poirier is still an elite fighter. I just think he is. I think, again, this will be, I think, a Dustin Poirier, Dan Hooker type fight. I think Benoit Saint-Denis is going to win rounds. I think he might win rounds early. But as the fight goes on, Benoit has not been a 5-round fight. Poirier is going to start to break Saint-Denis. I don't think Saint-Denis is going to be able to get Poirier out of there. I think this will be just primarily a kickboxing fight. I don't think this one hits the mat at all unless, again, there's a knockdown, which I don't think there's going to be until Dustin Poirier knocks down Benoit Saint-Denis in the 4th round. I think Benoit's going to win the 1st round. He might even win the 2nd. But in that 3rd round, that's where this fight's going to start to turn. And I think Dustin Poirier is going to start to see a lot of success in that 3rd round and into the 4th. And if it goes to 5, which I don't think it's going to, but in that 4th round, that's where Dustin Poirier is going to get this finish, and Dustin Poirier is going to prove he's still an elite fighter. Not to say that Benoit Saint-Denis is not going to be that in the future. Just right now, Dustin Poirier is better than Benoit Saint-Denis. I truly think so. I truly think so. I don't think Benoit Saint-Denis can knock him out, and I think Dustin Poirier is still better in these spots, in these striking spots. I think, again, I don't think he's not a pushover, and he's like, I'm not disrespecting Matt Frivola. I'm not disrespecting Ismael Bonfim. I'm not disrespecting Gabriel Miranda. But Dustin Poirier is not those guys. Dustin Poirier is levels ahead of them. Poirier is winning the fight. Dustin the Diamond Poirier by 4th round TKO. He's going to break Benoit Saint-Denis, and I honestly think that the odds are a little disrespectful to the Diamond. He might be the greatest fighter ever to not win a world championship yet. I don't think he's going to, I'll be honest. I'll be honest with you. I don't think Poirier is ever going to win the belt, but Dustin the Diamond's going to break Benoit Saint-Denis. He's not washed up. That one knockout is not going to change his entire career. I don't think so. I don't think that is a career-changing knockout, the Gaethje fight. Poirier wins, and he does it pretty decisively. After that 2nd round ends, it will be all Dustin Poirier. The Diamond by 4th round knockout. On to the main event. It is the rematch for the Bantamweight Championship, Sugar Sean O'Malley versus Marlon Cheeto Vera. Now, again, you know why the UFC made this fight. They made it because, mainly Sean O'Malley wants it. And now let's talk about that first fight. Was it just a 1 in 1,000, O'Malley's leg gave out? Maybe. I think, again, it was the leg kicks out of Cheeto Vera that really did well for him. And O'Malley, again, there's different ways you can look at that fight. O'Malley doesn't count it as a loss. I mean, he lost the fight, obviously. But again, he says that his leg just gave out and there's nothing he could do. And he just got finished on the ground. Sure, will Cheeto Vera look to kick him in the leg again? I think so. However, I don't think Cheeto Vera's the best guy in this weight class to challenge for the belt. I don't think so. I think a lot of people think that as well. I can name a bunch of bantamweight fighters I think are better than Cheeto Vera because Cheeto Vera just lost to Corey Sandhagen in a 5-round main event 2 fights ago. It is utterly ridiculous that he's in this spot. Let's just be honest. And truly, I think Cheeto has one chance to win this fight, and it's a chance that he will have throughout the entirety of the 25 minutes, and it's just that, okay, if he puts one shot into O'Malley and wobbles him and knocks him out, the fight's over. Because that's how every Chito Vera fight is. But if these two just stand in front of each other and strike technically for 25 minutes, Sean O'Malley will probably get out the fight with a decision. Chito has to knock him out to win the fight. I don't think Chito can win a decision against Sean O'Malley. Because I think O'Malley is too good striking-wise, where he's not going to drop 3 rounds to Chito. Because Chito loses strike for strike most of the time. Like, when you look at the numbers of Chito Vera fights, he usually has less strikes. Like, the Pedro Munhoz fight is the rare fight that Chito does strike-wise outstrike Pedro Munhoz. He outstrikes him 141 to 113. Every other fight, Chito usually loses that. Santhagen obviously got dominated. He lost every single round in that fight. Now he's getting a title fight. But anyways, he lost 2-1 striking to Santhagen. Dominic Cruz outstruck him. But again, Chito leveled the playing field with the knockdowns, and that's how he won the fight. Rob Font had 271 significant strikes on Chito Vera in a 5-round fight. Chito Vera 159. How did Chito Vera win? The knockdowns and the damage Chito Vera is able to put on with his strikes. Frankie Yeager was outstriking Chito Vera. Barely, but he was. How did Chito win? Landed the big knockout blow. Right? Jose Aldo and Chito Vera basically went strike for strike. Right? It was close. Who won the fight? Aldo. Song Yadong outstruck Marlon Vera. Like, these guys will outstrike Chito Vera, but how does Chito Vera win? It's with the damage, and it's with the power that the man has. I'm not denying that. And I'm not denying that Chito Vera will 100% have a striker's chance and a puncher's chance in this fight because of the power he possesses. But other than that, Sean O'Malley should win the fight. I'm not a fan of Sean O'Malley. I'm not, I'll be honest. I think Sean O'Malley is going to win by decision. I don't think it's all that entertaining, I'll be honest. I think this is going to be Pedro Munhoz-esque, where O'Malley stays on the outside and he just wins by decision. I'm not a big fan of O'Malley. I think Sean O'Malley is going to get dominated by Merab Dvalishvili in his next fight. If they don't, I hope they don't do the Poirier fight. I don't think they're going to, because Poirier doesn't want to fight till November now, and that's obviously the time frame for when Volk can come back and fight again. So I think O'Malley is going to get Merab next. But I think he's just going to be able to do enough against Chito, because I don't think he's going to get hit with these big shots that Vera's going to throw at him. I don't think he's going to. I think he's going to stay on the outside. He's just going to use his jab effectively. Chito's not going to blitz in like Aljo did. Like, again, Aljamain Sterling won the first round against Sean O'Malley striking-wise. He did, but it's not like Vera's going to be all that active where he can steal rounds off of O'Malley like Aljo did in that first round, when Aljo was just purely striking with Sugar Sean O'Malley. It's not going to happen, because Chito's going to wait on the outside, and Chito's just going to wait to unload with that big power shot and try to put O'Malley down, but that's not going to happen if Sugar just doesn't engage all that much, which unfortunately is probably the best way for Sugar Sean O'Malley to win the fight, is if he doesn't engage, and I think that's what he's going to do. I don't think he's going to engage in most parts of this fight, because I don't think Chito's going to engage that much. So if O'Malley just waits and just stays in the outside and just tune up Chito the entire 25 minutes, I think he can win. Again, Corey Sandhagen was able to just go out there and outstrike Chito Vera for 25 minutes, right? Like, I know Sandhagen took him down a couple times, and sure, so it's not the full 25, but still, as we went on in that fight, the 3rd, 4th, and 5th rounds were just Corey Sandhagen outstriking Chito Vera. I know there was some wrestling in the 5th, but rounds 3 and 4 was all Sandhagen outstriking Vera. Who's to say Sean O'Malley's not going to do the same exact damn thing? Chito was just waiting to pull the trigger in that fight, and he could never find it, because the head movement and again, Sandhagen was not there to be hit. Sean O'Malley's not going to be there to be hit for Chito Vera. It's going to take something like the first fight for Chito to win. Either it's a huge knockout, it's a huge shot that he rocks O'Malley and puts him out, or it's something like the first fight where he uses the leg kicks and something happens with O'Malley's legs, because that's the second time Sean O'Malley has had something happen to him with his, with his legs in the fight, right? I mean, you look at the Andre Sokolov fight. His legs give out, given it was more of a damage that Sokolov put on him, but at the end of the fight, O'Malley couldn't stand. Same thing happened in the Vera fight, right? So I think Vera will look to use the leg kicks a lot, but Sean O'Malley knows that that's coming, so O'Malley's probably going to check a lot of those. So I don't think they're going to be that much of a factor in this fight. So when you look at it, I think it's just going to be pretty much striking, and it's going to be pretty much a boxing fight, and Sean O'Malley should win. He should. It's not. I don't think it's going to be all that great. I don't even think Sean's going to get a finish. I think you're going to be looking at the end of this fight like, what did we just watch? I think it's going to be, honestly, Israel Adesanya, Yoel Romero-esque. I think it's kind of going to be like that, where you got the, kind of, like, Adesanya's a bigger superstar than O'Malley ever was. The UFC is trying to shove Sean O'Malley down our throats as their big superstar. He's very forced. I don't think he is much of a superstar, and I think Moroz, again, is going to mop the floor with him. If it's not Moroz, Sandhagen will do it, and if it's not Sandhagen, it's going to be Topuria. One of those guys are going to get the first win over Sean O'Malley as the O'Malley championship run has been going. And yeah, Sean, though, is going to win this fight because it's Chito Vera. But any other fight in the top 5 is danger for Sean O'Malley. Merab Dvalishvili, Corey Sandhagen, Song Yadong, Umar Nurmagomedov is still trouble. Aljamain Sterling was still trouble as well before he went up to 145 pounds. It's ridiculous Aljo didn't get the rematch because I think Aljo would do pretty well in the rematch. Again, O'Malley's a very protected champion. They're protecting him with this fight, but he's still going to win because, again, he's going to stay on the outside and he's not going to get hit and not let Chito get that one shot to change the direction of the fight. It's a pretty simple game plan to beat Chito Vera. I think O'Malley knows it. I think a lot of guys know it. If he follows the game plan of Corey Sandhagen minus the wrestling, it is going to be all Sugar Sean O'Malley and still bantamweight champion of the world, Sean O'Malley. And folks, thank God for watching our UFC 299 full card predictions here on the channel. Again, back tomorrow with the PFL, and the next week we've got Tai Tuivasa and Marcin Tybura from the UFC Apex. But folks, again, that'll do it from this Miami, Florida-based pay-per-view Mayhem in Miami, UFC 299. It's not actually the name of the pay-per-view, but I wish it was. That'd be kind of funny. But still, we got O'Malley in the main event. Folks, thank you for watching. Make sure that subscribe button down below for more. Make sure to leave a like. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy the video. Make sure to comment if you do disagree with any of the picks. Folks, thank you for watching, and Mamba